Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on a word we hear all the time, a force that shapes our world in ways we probably don't even realize. We are, of course, talking about government.
Okay, so take a look at these headlines. You've got one about onion prices, another about flood planning, and a third about protecting workers' rights. They seem totally unrelated, don't they? I mean, what on earth could possibly tie them all together? Well, the answer is government. It's like this invisible thread that runs through all these different parts of our daily lives, making decisions that affect everything from the food we buy to the safety of our homes.
So let's start by looking at just how government is everywhere. It's kind of like the operating system for our entire society, running quietly in the background. And that leads to a really big question. What is a government's actual job? What's on its to-do list? You might be surprised by just how long and varied that list really is. I mean, just look at this. The scope is huge. A government decides where to build roads and schools, but it also creates programs to help the poor. It protects our borders, manages relationships with other countries, and organizes relief when disaster strikes. And of course, a huge part of its job is to make and enforce the laws that we all live by, and run essential services like the mail and the trains. It's a lot. Now here's something you might not think of right away. Courts. Upholding justice is a critical government function. The entire judicial system, which settles our disputes and makes sure the laws are actually being followed, is a fundamental piece of the government structure. And here's another piece of that puzzle. Think about public services that are just essential. Things like a national railway system. The government runs these, providing the basic infrastructure that literally keeps the country moving. And it doesn't stop there. The government also oversees crucial national resources. Energy, for example, like petroleum. This is to make sure that the absolute essentials for the economy are being managed for the good of everyone. Okay, after seeing all that, you have to be wondering, right? How can one single organization possibly manage so many different things across such a massive country? Well, the secret is in how it's structured. It's not just one giant blob. The government works on 3 different levels. First, you've got the local level, which deals with your immediate community, your village or your town. Then there's the state level, which handles things for an entire state. And at the top, you have the national level, which is responsible for the country as a whole. So let's make this super clear with a few examples. Say a city like Patna needs a new park for kids to play in. That's a local decision. But what if the state of Haryana wants to give free electricity to its farmers? That's a state-level action. And then for the really big picture stuff, like maintaining peace with Russia or introducing a new 1,000-rupee note, that all has to be handled at the national level. Each level has its own turf. Okay, so we know what government does and how it's organized. But that leaves one huge question. Where does its power, its actual authority to make these decisions and enforce these laws really come from? The answer to that question really depends on the type of government we're talking about. And for the most part, it boils down to 2 very different systems, a democracy and a monarchy. In a democracy, the power flows up from the people. We, the citizens, give the government its power by electing our leaders. And this is key. That government has to answer to us. It has to explain its actions. In a monarchy, it's the complete opposite. Power is inherited. It's passed down through a royal family. The king or queen has the final say and doesn't have to explain their decisions to anybody. And this image just says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you've got power by birthright, all in the hands of one person. And on the other, you have people demanding that power, fighting for the right to choose for themselves. And that brings us to a really important point. That right to vote in a democracy, it wasn't a gift, it was won. It was won through long, hard struggle. That struggle was for an idea called universal adult franchise. It sounds complicated, but it's actually a beautifully simple and totally revolutionary idea. Every single adult in a country gets to vote. That's the foundation of any real democracy today. But, it wasn't always like this. For a long, long time, voting was a privilege saved for a tiny group of people, basically men who owned property and were educated. That meant almost everyone else. Women, the poor, people without formal education. They had 0 say in how their own country was run. The women's suffrage movement is just such a powerful example of this fight. When World War I happened, women stepped up and took on jobs that had always been considered men's work, which really shattered a lot of old stereotypes. But to make their voices heard, suffragettes had to protest publicly, chain themselves to railings, even go on hunger strikes. And all that courage and persistence, it worked.
American women won the right to vote in 1920, and women in the UK got equal voting rights in 1928. And this wasn't just a Western phenomenon. Right here in India, before independence, the exact same kind of injustice was happening. Only a tiny, privileged minority of people were allowed to vote, leaving millions and millions of people completely voiceless. This quote from Gandhiji from 1931 just perfectly captures the moral heart of the movement. He wrote, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should get the vote, but a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote." You can just feel the injustice he's pointing to, the idea that a good person's character means less than their bank account. Which brings us to the most important takeaway of all this. That long, hard fight for the right to vote established one fundamental truth about democracy. The power really, truly belongs to the people. Your vote is your voice. So we'll leave you with this to think about. If voting is power, and that power is in your hands, what does it really mean to use it wisely and shape the world you want to live in?